We grew up in a small town in Central California called Easton. Easton is a farming community where everyone knows everyone, and the closest entertainment is located a few miles north in Fresno. For small children, it's exciting to go exploring in the vast fields and vineyards that scatter the area. For the longtime senior residents, it's quiet enough to relax and go about their daily business, usually gossiping with the other blue hairs of the community. This is how we lived. My grandparents, Red and Esther, raised us. They had moved from the San Jose area nearly 45 years prior for my grandfather's job at Pacific Gas and Electric. They gruffly raised 4 generations of kids. I only say this because they raised all 7 of their children, an older set of my cousins, us, and now my grandmother is continuing to help raise one of my second cousins. Always an open home where if my grandmother called you a shitbird, she meant she loved you. My 2 cousins, Frankie and Crystal, were like a brother and sister to me. We fed the cows, played soccer, climbed up the trees to the roof of the house, walked down the street to buy pizza at the convenience store, and got yelled at, always together. Our favorite spot in the whole world was laying on my grandparents' bed watching TV. They had cable, which was really cool at the time. Frankie was my grandparents' favorite. They couldn't stop talking about him to the whole town, and they paid for everything he ever wanted. As we grew up, we didn't grow apart, just grew different. I went to a high school on the other side of Fresno in a little suburb called Clovis, where students were pushed to choose a focus and excel at it. Frankie and Crystal stayed in Easton and went to that high school where so many students were left behind. Frankie tried to find a niche by playing sports, but one failing grade in one class crushed that dream. That's where I felt it went downhill for him. He started hanging around with a less than stellar crowd, but he was still always there for us. He brought us food when we were sick, stopped whatever he was doing to change one of our flats, and showed up to support Crystal and I at every cheer competition, school play, and science fair. He brought everyone together for barbecues, floating down the Kings River in Ray-Ban Wayfarers, and Batman-themed birthday parties. For 23 years, Batman-themed birthday parties. He was also an integral part of planning my grandfather's funeral. It was good to have everyone together, given the circumstances. Even after I moved from Easton and Crystal spent less and less time there as she grew older, he stayed. Easton, this once unobtrusive area, has been in the news a lot lately. And not for good reasons. So many people that I grew up with are now described as forever young. Frankie was the first. My mom was visiting. We had just watched Bruce Lee's Big Boss, and we were laughing about how dumb it was. She got a phone call and answered it.
Hi, honey.
Like normal. Then her face dropped. She was so quiet.
Okay. Where are you? Okay.
Then she hung up and ran to the other room. I followed her and asked her what happened. She said Frankie got killed in a car accident. I couldn't go get him. I couldn't find him. I couldn't bail him out. How could someone who was so present in our lives be taken so suddenly? He was gone. I cried hysterically for days on end. My whole family had to relive hearing his death over and over again. He was drunk driving, ran a stop sign out in some weird part of town, and took out a father and son with him. He was villainized on social media. I could have killed everyone who said a bad thing about him. We don't know why he was there, and we will never know because his girlfriend said it was not our business. I was charged with making a photo presentation of his life and beading and blessing Batman rosaries for my family. Most of the pictures for the presentation included my grandparents, myself, and Crystal, his sister. As painful as it was to make, it gave me something to do. It took us 2 weeks to get his body back from the county morgue. Then my aunt was able to set a funeral date. We all stood at Easton Cemetery, clad in our Batman t-shirts, and watched the first layer of dirt poured into his grave, next to my grandfather. Then we had the reception where my Batman-themed presentation included all of his photos and favorite songs, some of which were inappropriate for church, but it was him. It wasn't until after the reception that it began. I was helping Crystal carry these mason jar Batman-themed centerpieces back into my grandma's house. Admittedly, I wasn't paying attention to my surroundings much. I did notice someone standing in front of the car smoking a cigarette and just figured it was one of my uncles, when I lost control of one of the mason jars and it shattered on the asphalt.
Smooth move, Slick.
I jolted up and looked at the car in front of me. Nothing. There was no one there. There was no one around. Just me. That was a phrase he said all the time when one of us, and I quote, fucked up. Crystal came out of the house and asked me if I was okay. I told her no and ran inside to get a broom to clean up the glass. I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want anyone to think I was crazy. But it continued. I felt like I saw him everywhere I went. Not fully, just out of the corner of my eye. I heard his voice. Not clearly, but in crowds of people at the mall or in restaurants. The worst torment came when I tried to sleep. My most memorable dream didn't feel scary at first. We were all there, both my grandparents, Frankie, Crystal, all of us. We were a lot younger, laying on the bed watching TV. It was so real, so familiar. The way the comforter felt, the smell of fried chicken, even the colors. I laid there just looking at him. And looking back at Crystal, wanting to ask her if she was seeing the same thing I was. Then I put my hand on Frankie's shoulder and asked him, "When did you know?"
When did I know what?
When did you know you were dead?
Don't worry about that. You'll find out how you know you're dead soon enough.
He was so nonchalant. His facial expression didn't change. I woke up crying. Crying because I saw him. Crying because of what he told me. Crying because I know my family couldn't handle losing another so soon. It's been 2 years. I still hear his voice. Every once in a while, I see him. Not all of him. Just a man passing wearing a Batman shirt or a Ray-Ban Wayfarers. I've even come out of my grandma's bathroom to see someone walking into her room, but no one is ever there when I check. I always get a gut-wrenching feeling when these occurrences take place. I don't feel as though he is at peace. What's worse is that Crystal's daughter, who was born a few months before his passing, will not go into my grandma's room, and cries hysterically if she has to go down the hall for any reason. My family won't attribute it to him, but they may not have seen what I've seen. I can't lie. I get a little nervous when I turn off of CA 41 South into Easton. The Batman rosary hanging from my rearview mirror always swings a little harder.